Hello everyone, welcome to a very late episode of Music of the Week, but it's an episode of Music of the Week nonetheless. I have about 6 albums to go through. One of them, I wasn't sure I should do, but I'll get to that pretty much instantly because it's the first album I'll be covering. But yeah, 6 albums. Let's go through what we gotta get through. We begin with Apparition and their debut album for The Apparition, and this is the one I wasn't fully sure about doing because technically this came out back in July 2023 through a different label called, I think it was called Headsplit, and I thought that was a Spanish label at first, because the band are from Spain. But no, it's a label based in Oregon, but they released the album last week, last Friday, through a label called FDA, and then the day before, they released it independently. They released it independently the day before they signed to a new label to move more copies, but more sources cite this as the official version. The reviews came in more recently for this, so I'm getting it for this one. With that being said, it gets a B, which is tied for the lowest grade of the episode. This is a good one, trust me. I did like most of it. I thought that the band had some really good talent on their books. You know, I don't really remember any of the names, especially considering that most of the names are just like one word sort of things from what I could find, which is a bit strange. But the main thing here is the instrumentation. It's really heavy, really fast paced, and there's not really a lot of songs on it, which normally would be a detriment, and, you know, sometimes they can blur a little bit, but they're mostly just handled quite nicely, you know? There's really good solo work, and I wish it showed up a bit more. Production is pretty decent, all things considered, but what works really more is the band's work rate and the instrumentation that really carry the album. The writing is sort of similar to any death metal band. There's not really much originality in terms of themage, which is not really a word, but I'm making it one now. But, you know, if you just want some really good full blast death metal without much else to go behind it, I can recommend this one. And for a debut, really fucking solid. So I'm looking forward to seeing what they drop next. Next, we have another debuting band named Baratro and their first album, The Sweet Smell of Unrest. So this is also a very unique one, considering that this is a trio, and one of the members is Dave Curran, who is a name I've heard before, and he's best known for being involved in like a lot of like sludgy metal noise rocky acts, which is what this band is. It's pretty much what you would expect from Dave Curran if you're even passingly familiar with the man. I'm giving this a B+. I thought it was surprisingly well produced for what it is, and it's got like a lot of really good crunch on the sludge, and even though I'm not the biggest sludge connoisseur, which is a bit of a weird phrase, I really liked most of what this one had to offer. I thought the lyrics were, well, I'll be honest, I couldn't really tell you what they were about because I couldn't find anything on the writing, and I couldn't find anything on the themes, and the lyrics themselves the vocals are too difficult to really decipher. But mostly it's carried by the really good production and Dave Curran's central performance as a vocalist and bassist. The bass mixing on this thing is bloody great. I like the pacing a lot as well. Again, it can sort of plot, but it's got that like stompy swagger to it that the sound can have at times, and this album is just a really good example of that. I've gone through production a fair few times of structuring. Yeah, performance is quite good. Instrumentation is really good. I like the heavy focus on the riffs, and again, the bass work is really where it stands out to me. Just a really solid album in this genre with more of a punky edge than I was expecting. So if you're into that, this could be a good thing, especially if you like Dave Curran's stuff. Next, we have Enterprise Earth and what I think is their 5th album, Death and Anthology. I think this is a band I'd heard the name of before. Very good deathcore group, I will say, and this is my first album by them. I'm giving it an A, which is only second highest grade of the episode. I know, I did say it was a good one. Really enjoyed a lot of the elements of it, though. If you like that sort of Lorna Shore style of deathcore, even though I think this band might be doing it a bit longer, or they might have been around the same time, this will fill that gap, mostly in terms of its epicness, though. It doesn't really have as many symphonic elements, and it doesn't really do a lot to experiment with the style, which I think is my main sort of issue, I guess you could say. A lot of the songs do have a lot of time, and they give themselves that time, and they use it really well for the most part. But it feels a bit like a one-trick pony, but it's a really fucking good trick. The lyrical themes do focus on death, much like Apparitions did, but like Apparitions album did, this one actually adds some nuance and some good layering to those themes. The performances are bloody great, especially from whoever the drummer is. My god, he does a good job. The production is really good as well, and despite the few issues I have with the pacing, it does really carry itself with that swagger, and it does just about justify its 59-minute running time. It is quite a long set. It's probably the longest album I covered from last weekend. But the length is not a deal breaker. It's just the fact that sometimes they don't feel like they do enough with it. But the performances and presence are really good. The writing's nice. I like the instrumentation. Again, the drumming and the guitar work are really good, and production's really good too. Adds some really nice elements. So, yeah, if you've heard anything good about Enterprise Earth, this is probably all the good shit you probably like about them. I don't know. This is my first album by them, and I feel like I could have picked a much worse one. This was amazing. Next, we have another debut, and the last debut of the video, we have a Spanish band called Junta, with their self-titled debut album, so Junta, and I have no clue if I'm pronouncing any of it correctly, and I'm giving this one a B+ as well. I really like this one. This is more of a thrashy-leaning hardcore punk effort, so a bit of a break from the like metal subgenres we've gone through before, although like thrashy metal does also count. I really enjoyed this though. And also uniquely, besides like first hearing about Baratra and Apparitions like stuff, this one's actually better written than those ones. It's got like it's a much better political undertone to the lyrics, and there's really good stuff about police brutality and violence against presumably Latinos because the band are from Spain. It's just really, really nicely written in that case. Performances are fucking believable and real. The band put the sweat in. It's really well produced. It's got like that raw, organic feel with a nice like harshness over the soundscape, which is good. I do think the structuring kind of. I've been complaining about structuring a lot. I know. I do think it does sort of suffer on occasion though, considering that a lot of the songs really are just kind of short. It's not a very long album. I think it might be the shortest album I went over last weekend. Really solid stuff though, and a really good fucking first go from it. Much better, slightly better than Apparitions was, but still really, really good for both of them. Well written, well produced, surprisingly well produced to be honest. Nicely performed. Good riffs. The riffs are goddamn heavy, and again, nice bass work on this. I like the writing as well. It's probably the closest to an A- as I'm likely to give an album, but it does have a couple of things that hold it back. But it's still a debut I recommend you go and check out when you get the time, and you probably will get the time. It's not a very long album. Next, we have Reconciler with their second album and their first in 5 years, Art for Our Sake. And I had no clue who this band was, and this is the album I've listened to not just the past weekends, probably the album I've listened to the most all year. It's only been out for 6 days, if even that. Giving this an A+. I really fucking enjoyed this one. So let's go through why I like it. First of all, a sort of older, sort of more warm-hearted old man style of punk rock, even though this band probably haven't been around that long. Think of like the Spanish love songs or hot water music sort of style. It's very similar to that in a few ways. Love the riff work. It's fast-paced, it's fresh, it adds so many nice elements from all three, and there's only like 3 members of the band as well, and they all deliver nicely. The drummer's great, the bassist who produced the album does a good job on bass and production. I think that was the lead vocalist as well, I could be wrong. I think the lead vocalist might play guitar, I don't know, but the fact is, vocals, guitar, bass and drums all amazing. The lyrical theme is very unique though, because it's a theme about art and what musicians and what you're willing to do to sacrifice, what you're willing to sacrifice for that art, you know, and how important it is to you. And it's not a theme that gets tackled, especially in like a punk rocky, pop punky sort of genre. It's a very unique theme and it's quite nicely handled, and there is more songs about other topics as well. For example, my favourite song of the album is a song called Hodge, which is about the loss of a friend, I think presumably due to the fact that one's focusing on the music career, and yeah, that happens in real life, and it feels like a very real song. It's a very fucking warm song too. It's such a good tribute, and I really, really enjoyed it. I don't know who Hodge was, but presumably they were a nice person. But yeah, I think the only thing I might have the slightest issue with might be the pacing, because the first half of the album can, and a few of the songs near the latter half as well, can feel like, oh, we're just doing this to get through quick, or they just end in a bit of an odd way, but then I kept spinning back and I realised that's just how they wanted it to come out, you know? They said exactly all that they need to do, let's save the bigger stuff for when it matters. And yeah, this album just about gets everything fucking right. I really enjoyed this one, and you just might too. I loved this thing. And finally, we have Static X with their 8th album, I believe, Project Regeneration Volume 2. And the last album I listened to before this was Project Regeneration Volume 1, which is the first one, I think, since the passing of Wayne Static back in 2014. I'm giving this one a B. I did like most of what it had to offer. Mostly I like the first 2/3 of the album, because the last third feels a bit weirdly rushed, even though it's got some of the longest songs. It just feels like the least unique portion of the album. It's still the band's solid industrial metal stuff. I think what holds it back is the fact that they're using vocal recordings that Wayne Static did, and he was also the main lyricist and songwriter. And in terms of the lyrics, it doesn't really feel super advanced. What I want from the band still, and I think I said this when I covered Pro Reg Volume 1, which was I really want the band to write from a more emotional standpoint because they lost their lead singer. It really sort of annoys me that they're using stuff that he wrote and not just writing stuff of their own for him, you know? I do have to give props to Edsel Dirt for stepping up on guitar and vocal duties as well. That was really, really cool of him to do that. And he puts in a better performance here than he did on Dope's newest album last year, because bloody hell, that was bad. That was bad. But for the most part, really good. Nicely, organically produced. Performances are mostly pretty good. The writing is a bit lacking, but it's never really been Static X's strong suit, I guess you could say. But riff work is still nice and heavy and crunchy. I quite like the synth and keyboard elements that I used on the album. And, yeah, I mean, pacing's, the first 2/3 of the album are really, really good for that, and the last third, again, sort of falls apart a bit, but it does hold itself up enough, I would say. But still, go and listen to it, and hopefully next time they don't just rely on old Wayne Static recordings and pre-recorded material. Hopefully they wrote some original stuff, actually detailing, we lost an important member of the band, and, it would be nice to get more of an emotional lilt from this. And that'll about do it. As always, I'll go through the unofficial, ranking system. So I think it would go Apparition with Fear the Apparition, Static X with Project Regeneration Volume 2. Difficult. I'd have to go with Barotra with the Sweet Smell of Unrest, Junta with Junta, Enterprise Earth with Death and Anthology, and Reconciler with Art for Art's sake. But as always, go and listen to all the albums, formulate your own opinions, because that's what makes this shit and this life that we live quite interesting. As for the other things I'll go through, favourite song, it is close between Hodge by Reconciler and Casket of Rust by Enterprise Earth from Death and Anthology. I really like both, but I think just because it made me fucking feel so much, I'd have to go with Hodge, but both songs are really great. However, Enterprise Earth do get best album cover, because holy shit, that is a hellish and awesome fucking looking album cover. It's so badass and goes so hard. And I would say the same for Reconcilers, but you can go and see that one yourself. I'm not showing you the album art in this video because it's got a slight bit of nudity. It's nothing too offensive, but I don't. And I know I don't monetize my content, so I shouldn't care. But I don't really want to run the risk. That'll about do it, though. I'll see you tomorrow. I don't think I'll see you tomorrow for a reaction because, again, me and the parents, well, mostly the parents are moving stuff around, and I will have to help with that, so I don't know if I'm going to get a video done with a reaction, which is a shame because I want to react to the new Bad Omens song featuring Poppy, and The Ghost Inside just drops a new single, and I want to do that one so fucking bad. You have no fucking clue. But the next thing I can guarantee, tomorrow night, Cutting Edge, live on my Twitch. It's going to be fucking awesome. I'll see you all tomorrow for that. As always, thank you for watching. You're awesome. Bye-bye.